The colonial economy played a crucial role in the development of Europe's wealth. It was a time when European powers established colonies in different parts of the world, exploiting their resources and labor to fuel their economies. In this video, we will explore how Europe built its wealth through the colonial economy. The colonial economy was a system of trade and commerce that emerged in the 16th century. European powers, such as Spain, Portugal, France, and England, established colonies in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. These colonies were used to extract resources, such as gold, silver, sugar, tobacco, and spices, and to exploit the labor of indigenous peoples and slaves. The colonial economy was based on a system of mercantilism, which aimed to maximize exports and minimize imports. European powers imposed strict trade regulations on the colonies, forcing them to trade exclusively with their mother countries. This ensured a steady flow of resources and wealth back to Europe. The colonial economy also led to the rise of capitalism, as merchants and investors sought to profit from the trade and commerce with colonies. This led to the growth of industries, such as textiles, iron, and shipbuilding, which were essential for the expansion of colonial trade. However, the colonial economy was also marked by exploitation, violence, and inequality. Indigenous peoples and slaves were forced to work in harsh conditions, often with little or no pay. European powers also engaged in wars and conflicts to protect their colonial interests, leading to the displacement and suffering of millions of people. In the next segments, we will explore the different aspects of the colonial economy, including the role of slavery, the impact on indigenous peoples, and the legacy of colonialism in the modern world. Slavery was a key component of the colonial economy. European powers relied on the forced labor of millions of African slaves to work on plantations, mines, and factories in the Americas. The transatlantic slave trade was a lucrative business that brought immense wealth to European merchants and slave traders. The slave trade began in the 16th century and continued until the 19th century. Millions of Africans were captured, transported, and sold as slaves in the Americas. The conditions on slave ships were horrific, with many slaves dying from disease, starvation, and abuse. Slavery was a brutal and dehumanizing system that denied slaves their basic human rights. Slaves were treated as property with no legal or social status. They were forced to work long hours in dangerous and exhausting conditions with little or no pay. Slavery was also a system of racial oppression, as it was based on the belief that Africans were inferior to Europeans. This belief was used to justify the brutal treatment of slaves and to maintain the power and privilege of European slave owners. However, slavery was also marked by resistance and rebellion. Slaves fought back against their oppressors through acts of sabotage, escape, and rebellion. These acts of resistance challenged the legitimacy of slavery and paved the way for its eventual abolition. The legacy of slavery continues to shape the modern world, as it has had a profound impact on the social, economic, and political structures of many countries. In the next segments, we will explore the impact of colonialism on indigenous peoples and the legacy of colonialism in the modern world. The colonial economy also had a devastating impact on indigenous peoples around the world. European powers often used violence and coercion to take control of indigenous lands and resources, leading to the displacement and marginalization of indigenous communities. Indigenous peoples were often forced to work on plantations and mines, or to provide other forms of labor for European colonizers. They were also subjected to cultural and religious assimilation, as European powers sought to impose their own values and beliefs on indigenous communities. The impact of colonialism on indigenous peoples was also marked by disease and epidemics. European colonizers brought with them diseases such as smallpox and measles, which had devastating effects on indigenous populations, who had no immunity to these diseases. The legacy of colonialism continues to impact indigenous peoples today, as they continue to face discrimination, marginalization, and violence. Many indigenous communities are still fighting for their rights to land, resources, and self-determination. However, indigenous peoples have also shown resilience and resistance in the face of colonialism. They have maintained their cultures, languages, and traditions, and have fought back against colonialism through acts of resistance and rebellion. In the next segments, we will explore the legacy of colonialism in the modern world, including the impact on global inequality and the ongoing struggles for justice and equality. The legacy of colonialism continues to shape the modern world, as it has had a profound impact on the social, economic, and political structures of many countries. The colonial economy laid the foundation for global inequality, as it created a system of exploitation and oppression that favored European powers over the rest of the world. The colonial economy also led to the development of capitalism, which has become the dominant economic system in the world today. Capitalism is based on the idea of maximizing profits and minimizing costs, which often leads to the exploitation of workers and the environment. The legacy of colonialism is also evident in the ongoing struggles for justice and equality around the world. Many countries are still grappling with the legacies of colonialism, including the effects of slavery, the displacement of indigenous peoples, and the exploitation of natural resources. However, there have also been movements for change and progress, as people around the world have fought back against colonialism and its legacies. These movements have sought to challenge the structures of power and privilege that were created by colonialism and to create a more just and equitable world. The legacy of colonialism is complex and multifaceted, and it continues to shape the world in which we live. However, by understanding the history and impact of colonialism, we can work towards creating a more just and equitable world for all. In the final segment, we will reflect on the lessons we can learn from the colonial economy and how we can use this knowledge to create a better future. The colonial economy was a system of exploitation and oppression that had a profound impact on the world. However, it also provides us with important lessons that we can learn from as we work towards creating a more just and equitable world. One lesson we can learn from the colonial economy is the importance of challenging systems of power and privilege. The colonial economy was based on a system of mercantilism and capitalism that favored European powers over the rest of the world. By challenging these systems, we can create a more equitable and just world. Another lesson we can learn from the colonial economy is the importance of recognizing and addressing the legacies of colonialism. The effects of colonialism are still felt around the world, and we must work towards addressing these legacies, including the effects of slavery, the displacement of indigenous peoples, and the exploitation of natural resources. Finally, we can learn from the resilience and resistance of those who have fought back against colonialism and its legacies. From indigenous peoples to slaves, people have resisted and rebelled against colonialism, challenging the systems of power and privilege that were created by it. By learning from the colonial economy and its legacies, we can work towards creating a more just and equitable world. We can challenge systems of power and privilege, address the legacies of colonialism, and build a future that is based on justice, equality, and respect for all. Thank you for watching this video on the colonial economy and its impact on the world. We hope that it has provided you with important insights and lessons that you can use to create a better future.